Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for trekking out here, snow and all, and in purple to celebrate Prince. I'm Daniella Brito. I'm a curatorial specialist here at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. This is the 10th program as a part of the series Black on Screen, A Century of Radical Visual Culture, which looks at the past century of moving images and films and feature-length films and documentaries and all things moving image in terms of Black life, and celebrates that on screen through our collections from the Moving Image and Recorded Sound Division here at the Schomburg Center, which you can visit Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5 p.m. if you are curious and want to see what's in our collections. And tonight is the second season of Black on Screen, which is titled 100 Years of Black Music on Camera, which celebrates the sonic archive of Black life on screen. We've screened works like Superfly that highlight films, musicians like Curtis Mayfield, and we've screened works by Mary Lou Williams, and so many other sort of works that look at the context of Black life through the lens of music. So tonight I'm really excited to be screening a concert film, Prince and the Revolution Live from 1985, and then we'll be having a talk back afterwards with Dr. Fredara Mareva Hadley and Angela Duff. So please silence your phones for now, and then we'll jump into the talk back right after, and really excited to screen this film. Thank you all for watching that with us. It really felt very great to be in what felt like a live Prince concert here at the Schomburg Center. I want to say a big welcome to our online audience who will be joining us virtually, tuning in virtually, and I want to welcome Dr. Fredara Hadley and Angela Duff to the stage. Before we jump into all things Prince, I do want to properly introduce my two guests right here. Bios. Daniella Duff is an internationally recognized Prince scholar and cultural curator who centers Prince's music legacy and cultural impact. As a polished solid, she curates annual interdisciplinary symposia that bring together scholars, musicians, podcasters, and fans, including the upcoming Prince I Wonder U40 Hybrid Symposium, which is coming up. Which commemorates 10 years since Prince's passing and the 40th anniversary of his Parade album, which if you were here in the beginning, we got to play, and Under the Cherry Moon film. She also produces and co-hosts the weekly online book club series and salon, What Did Prince Do This Week?, exploring Prince's work week by week. Dr. Fredara Mareva Hadley is an ethnomusicology professor in the music history department at Juilliard, where she teaches courses on African American music and the field of ethnomusicology. She has presented her research at academic conferences both domestically and abroad. At Juilliard, Hadley and Jenny Damusfara co-curated the 2020 Black History Month exhibit, Claiming Your Space, honoring the artistry and activism of Black Juilliard students. In 2024, Hadley continued the spirit of that exhibit by curating the Black History Month concert, Claiming Your Space, a celebration of Black music at Juilliard, performed in honor of a 1934 concert organized by Black Juilliard students, the Negro in Music. Baritone composer and arranger Harry T. Burley presided over the original concert, while mezzo-soprano Denise Graves presided over the 2024 concert. So please give a warm welcome to both of my wonderful guests here. And in the spirit of all things Black cinema, I kind of wanted to start us off on the note of, well, do you guys remember in the beginning scene in Brown Sugar when she's like, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Yeah, I kind of want to start with when did you both sort of come to Prince?
I'll get us started. So my aunt had a record collection, and I was visiting her in North Carolina. I was living in Georgia at the time, and I saw the cover of Dirty Mind. Now, you have to understand that I was 10 or 11, so it wasn't a sexual thing. For me, it was like it screamed freedom. As a Black woman who grew up in the South, and I love my grandmother dearly, but we were a church-going family and we had rules. And I knew that this guy didn't follow any rules. So that's the reason what really drew me to him. And I listened to it on the headphones, not because I knew what he was singing about. I sort of come to Prince through the music first, and then I get to the lyrics later. So I didn't know he was singing about head and all sorts of crazy stuff. I was just, oh my God, this music is amazing, and he can do things that I can't do. And so that's how I came to Prince.
I love that.
I'm also a Black woman who was raised in the South. I come from Florida, and I'm actually grateful. I was sharing this story with you earlier. My parents weren't supposed to be in town today, but they are. And so Mom and Dad, wave your hand. There they are. Both native, lifelong Floridians. They've never seen this much snow in their lives. But for me, Prince comes to me through my dad, who is a good deacon in the Baptist church, but and loved Raspberry Beret, Little Red Corvette. And so I remember When the Doves Cry. I remember being a little girl in the early 80s, and me and my dad would dance in the living room to these songs. And so I was like, oh, this is music that my dad likes, and my dad dances with me to Prince, so that means I like Prince, right? And it was that, and I had older cousins who could buy cassettes and albums and things like that, and if I was with them, they were listening to Prince. So it was actually deeply familial how I entered Prince's world, and then Prince, I grow to the point where I can claim Prince for myself. And I think that's a pretty special way to come to music in general, like through these somewhat random but deeply intimate kind of connections. You see something that someone in your family really likes, and you're like, this sounds like something I should pay attention to. And it's fun. That's the other thing, like for a little kid, I was like, we can dance to this. I didn't get to ballads till later, but like it's energetic, it felt good, you know, all of that. And so that is my Prince portal.
I feel you in the sort of coming back to Prince on your own terms. I think my introduction to Prince was in childhood with Purple Rain, but it wasn't actually until the pandemic when I went deep in a Prince spiral, particularly because of the Piano and a Microphone posthumous album that was released, because that was the first time I had heard Prince sort of stripped away of production and just acoustic, and I was so deeply moved and just like, whoa, the range, like, yeah, so it opened up a whole new kind of world in the world of Prince for me after I heard that album too. I would be remiss if I didn't kind of start this conversation, especially in the wake of what is going on in Minneapolis right now, acknowledging, of course, that Prince was born and raised in Minneapolis. And I think I want to hear from both of you, you know, in the moment that Prince sort of came onto the scene in the late 70s, we were in this sort of like huge moment in the Midwest and Midwest Black music history. And I kind of want to hear from both of you, like, give me some context and color for what was happening in Minneapolis at the time and across the Midwest that sort of was birthing this new sound, this new Minneapolis sound.
I'll start off. So actually, there was a lot of unrest in Minneapolis when Prince was growing up. He was born in 1958, and you know, a lot of cities across the states, there was just, you know, racial unrest that continues today, unfortunately. And he grew up in an environment where a lot of the concert venues weren't really open to Black musicians. So what I find very interesting is that if you've seen the film Purple Rain, the First Avenue Club, it exists, it's a real club, it exists in Minneapolis, but at one point they didn't allow Black musicians to play there. So I thought it was really fitting that Prince actually kind of showcased this club. Obviously they grew to love him, and things changed, but I find that, you know, like really, really interesting. So what Black musicians would do is, you know, they would do a lot of, you know, local clubs or cookouts, you know. There's like a really fantastic clip of Prince he's in his teens playing at the YMCA, you know, and so they basically did a lot of, you know, honing their chops in each other's basements in order to hone their craft. And there was like a lot of battle of the bands. Obviously, something that we don't have that I wish we had now was music in the schools.
That part.
So because, you know, music was in the, what's really funny though, there's a story that even though Prince actually went to music class, that he already knew how to play. So the teacher would just let him do whatever he wanted to do and give him access to the rooms, you know, after the classes were over. And it was a lot of giving amongst the community to these young kids who really wanted to play. So he moved in with his childhood best friend, Andre Simone. And Andre Simone's mother, Bernadette Anderson, was an amazing community figurehead in Minneapolis. And because, there's so many people that helped him become who he became because the community was so strong. And that's actually something that's missing today. So I'll hand it over to Fredara.
No, absolutely. Everything you're saying is something that we saw reverberating throughout the Midwest. It's the story of Dayton. It's the story of the South Side of Chicago. It's not just the Midwest, here as well. And so that thread of community, the combination of that and having access to music education gave people a way to create, even though these other avenues of performance were unavailable to them. But that's also been the story of Black music, like across the generations, this notion of making a way out of no way, and like we incubate this in community together first. And I love what you said about like there's so many people that had to have a hand in it to make a Prince possible, because that runs counter to how we often talk about musical genius. And I certainly, and I know you all agree that Prince is a musical genius, and it's, clap for that. And it takes nothing away from that genius to acknowledge the community in which those roots are anchored. And so it's been interesting to me in the last few weeks to see how people in Minneapolis evoke Prince, like the citizens of Minneapolis, as they are protesting. We see Prince emerge again as like a North Star of a son of Minneapolis, of whom they are most proud as they are dealing with, their city being under siege. And I think that says a lot. Like this is 1985. We are now in 2026, that you create a career, a lifetime of work that people, I think that's the best thing you can hope for, that even 10 years after you've passed away, people find a hook to hold on to address what they're dealing with right now in their city. I think that's not that he needs it, it's just further validation of both what Prince did and what the Black community in Minneapolis that you talked about. Even if it's no longer in the same way, those roots are still there, and people are able to step into them now. Because let's be clear, I'm glad that there are tens of thousands of people on the street, but that is a continuation of what a lot of Black activists built after the death of George Floyd. And so they don't have to start from scratch. And so all of that has deep community Black roots in Minneapolis, and that go back to that same period that you raised, the late 60s, where we had a wave of racial uprisings about policing, the same stories, the assassination of Martin Luther King. There's a straight line through all of that. And so Prince is able to come through as, sort of a representation of the best of what that community that Black community in Minneapolis has done for so many.
What I'm hearing from both of you, I feel like, is for sure that community has grounded and grounded Prince's career in a huge way. And when we think about the Black community that sort of birthed Prince, I'm curious if you can both say a little bit more, just like sonically, the sort of textures that we hear across Prince, like from funk to soul to rock. Like let's linger there for a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. So I don't know the call numbers. I think it's KMOJ out of Minneapolis was a Black radio station, and they were not on 24/7. They were only on for a very short period of time, and if I recall correctly, just like on the weekends. Otherwise, Prince and others, like members of the time, like Jimmy Jam and all of them that came up in Minneapolis, they listened to a lot of white radio. And then in addition to that, Prince's father was a jazz musician. His mom was a jazz vocalist. So he was exposed to jazz, through his parents. So he's definitely a melting pot of, basically hearing, Also, one of the things I want to say that I didn't mention before that is really important to Prince's story was this community center called The Way. And The Way was led by Spike Moss, who was a black activist in Minneapolis, who actually, it was a place for musicians to go to hone their craft, and they were supported there. And so what they would do is, Prince is at his root a Midwestern funk artist, drawing from Dayton, Ohio specifically, but also obviously James Brown, Sly Stone. If you look at the Revolution as a band, it sort of mirrors, Sly Stone's band. And so he was, pulling influences from a lot of different sources. Prince's favorite guitarist was actually Santana, and also he would, Sheila E. is very pivotal to Prince's story because a lot of members in Prince's band would eventually be through Sheila or from Sheila's band, so there's also a lot of Oakland influence as well. So Prince is pulling, from funk, he's pulling from rock, and gospel, soul, you name it, Prince can do it. And I think it's because it was a different time. So I was born in 1970, and my uncles and aunts sort of are my musical lineage, and they played everything. And I grew up in rural Alabama, and we would listen to Led Zeppelin, ELO, Edgar Winter, P-Funk, James Brown, Ray Charles. And I don't know when I moved to Georgia in the 80s, it was a segregation of music. And I didn't understand that because I came from a melting pot of music. And Prince came from that same melting pot of music. So I think that is the reason why Prince is who he is, because I like to, consider him in the present tense. It's because he was exposed to so much music, but also he accepted and embraced it.
Yeah, I often say about Prince, there is no greater interpreter of black music than Prince, right? I was sitting here tonight and I was like, that's Kojic. Like a shout beat, I can't remember. I was like, that is a shout beat. That is what you would hear in a shout chorus in a Kojic church. That is very, like they're very specific things. Obviously, there's James Brown in there. There was a line of a passage where he was singing. I'm like, that's Mavis Staples. And another point where in the saxophone solo, I was like, that's Coltrane, right? There's George Clinton in there, and Bootsy Collins in there. Hendrix is obviously in there. Little Richard is in there when he got up from the Fender Rhodes, and he starts playing. And then the Supremes were in there when they were doing this whole move. I was like, the Motown is in there. There's lots of Motown in there as well. I was like, there's no nook or cranny of black music that he doesn't interpret. He is both preacher and bluesman, right? He is conjurer. He is at the center of the ritual. He knows exactly where the audience is, and he knows that they want to be both seduced and challenged, right? And all in black and weaves in humor. All of those are very, very important tropes across the lineage of black music. And so I'm like, it's all there. Whatever you're listening for, whatever you're looking for, it's woven. Like, I was the burlesque aspect of it that takes us back to Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith. Like but yet he is able to do all of that in a way that is not gimmicky, that is all his own. And that's why I say the interpretation of it. He takes all of that and gives it back to us in a way that is uniquely Prince. But you can still see like the scenes of all of these genres in a really powerful way. And you can enjoy it and be on cloud 10 and not know any of that, right? Like, that's not the point. It's just that it's all kind of there, and I love that he leaves a lot of that visible, yet he is the root. If you like gumbo, you know what I'm talking about. He is the root, right? The thing that makes it unique and pulls it all together.
I love the way that you're saying that. Yeah. Like the idea or concept of interpretation is so like I feel like so spot on to me, because it makes me think of like quotation and just like assemblage and collage. And I think like Prince for me is truly like a master of collage in so many ways. There's all of these different references that are getting pulled in and then reshuffled and then remixed and Princified in ways that are just so intoxicating. I guess like on that note, I'm curious for you both, sort of transitioning and expanding the conversation to pop music as a whole. You know, Prince is, you know, one of our most important pop stars, right? And I guess for you both, I'm curious, how do you see the foundations of pop music being sort of inextricably linked to Black music?
So it's interesting, D'Angela, that you talked about like the segregation of charts, and because that goes back to the origin of Billboard charts in general. Like you had the Harlem Hit Parade, which was the race music chart, and you had pop music, which meant music that middle-class white people liked, and you had the Hillbilly chart, which was for rural white people. And race music was whatever music Black people made. It didn't actually, race music is not a sound, it's literally just the music of Black people, because they did not think that the music of Black people, white people would buy the music of Black people. And so they're like, it's only 10% of y'all in the country, so that's not gonna make a lot of money. And Black artists have had to fight and navigate that reality ever since. We may have changed the name of them, but like, it's funny to me when we talk about pop music in 2026, I'm like, all of that is hip hop and R&B. All of it. The thing that makes it pop is who's singing it. I'm like, all of these are hip hop. It's the same producers. Like K-pop is like 90s R&B. You know what I'm saying? And so that is to say that all of pop music is actually Black music. And so the questions become, and Prince navigated this famously as well, you know, who gets credited for it, who gets paid for it, right? And acknowledged for it. And so it's real. And so, you know, people in my classes, I say, and people, I'm like, I'm not overemphasizing or overestimating this. Every genre of American music ultimately goes back to some genre of Black music. Every single one of them. You could make that argument for death metal, yacht rock, whatever. Like, it ultimately goes back to Black music genres. And so one of the things that Prince does for us is really sort of subvert that paradigm, and you know, there are battles to be fought in the 80s. Like there's the battles with MTV, there are battles with Black music divisions versus pop music divisions and record labels and all of these things. Radio, which you mentioned, which is huge, where we still have some vestiges of like top 40 radio, but that becomes really the only Black artists you hear on top 40 are like Prince, Whitney, Michael, and Janet. Like there literally is nobody else in the entirety of the 80s. And so these are still boxes and cages that Black artists have to strategize against in order to get what they know they deserve. The question is never the art. The music is never the question. That is never, ever, ever the question. It's just, the question is about all of those other things. Do they get what they deserve in terms of credit, in terms of money? All of those things remain significant issues in American music, period.
So I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently in that when Prince signed his record contract, he explicitly said that, "Don't make me Black." And what he meant by that, not in terms of race, he meant in terms of the segregation of the charts that Fredara was just talking about. He wanted to be able to cross genres. He wanted to be able to perform any music that he wanted to perform. And, you know, he eventually got there, quote unquote, to the mountaintop, specifically with Purple Rain. There was glimmers of it with the previous album, 1999, with Little Red Corvette. But, you know, what I find interesting, once he got to that mountaintop of pop music, and he sort of, you know, Prince recorded like 39 albums proper. And then if you count the other albums that he wrote and produced and did all the music for, he did probably 22 to 23 more additional albums that are not underneath his name. So to be reduced to his pop, the heights of his pop is, I find very interesting. And the point I'm gonna make is I went to England one year, I think it was 2017 or 2018, and you have to, you know, why are you in, you know, the country? I was like, oh, I'm presenting on Prince. And the guy was like, the pop star? And I want to say, he's more than a pop star. Why are you reducing him down to a pop star? But I didn't, because I wanted to get into the country. So I do think because Prince is seen as a pop star, that sometimes his musicianship doesn't get, you know, just the accolades that it deserves. He played everything, any instrument, very well, very accomplished. And so I think sometimes when I hear pop star, I'm gonna tell you, I kind of shut down and I start like, he's more than a pop star, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like pop music growing up as a genre occupied a space in my head that felt like a genre that I didn't want to be approximate to at all. But then when I started really listening to artists like Prince that sort of reinvent the wheel of what, or in my mind, reinvent the wheel of what popular music can be, it just sort of shifted things for me, especially in thinking about the history of Black music. And also this kind of word that keeps getting thrown around right now, around post-pop. I'm wondering if you guys have any ideas around that kind of language and framework when we think about artists like Prince. Yeah.
Okay, you just taught me something. I had not heard that term.
Me neither.
And I'm curious. I feel like the 21st century has been a lot of trying to name things through their antagonism. So post-pop, alt R&B, like it's that thing, but not really trying to get. So I feel like my knee-jerk reaction, not just encountering this term right now, is like, how? Because the machinery of the industry is still the same. Yeah. And so I'm like, what are we pointing to? Are we pointing to a sound? And if it's a sound, then let's say that, right? And what are some of the artists affiliated with that? Do you know?
Like Sophie, the sort of techno artist, would be post-pop or hyper-pop. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm old now, my other knee-jerk reaction to that is you say that when you actually don't know history. Yeah. And so you think you're doing something that's brand new, but really there's somebody in the 80s who already did it. So it's probably a Black person, you're right. So that's
yeah.
So that's my get off my lawn immediate response. Yeah. You probably have a better one though.
No, I think you dropped the microphone on that. I'm with Fredara.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's like this constant desire to sort of refuse genre, and I feel like we could just say they refuse genre. But I'm curious. I was just curious. But
I'm gonna have to go research it and write a thesis on it or something.
The one thing I will say, in terms of refusing genre, I think, at the end of the day, Prince really wanted to be known as two things: a songwriter and a musician. And I think that it would be fantastic if you could get to a place where it's just good music. Mm-hmm. Why do we need genres? Just give me good music. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree, and I think that, I don't know, I'm curious for you both as we sort of think about the future of Black music, especially now when really anyone can be a musician and release their own. I know, it's true.
AI is allegedly
but can self-release, and there are all these different ways that folks are sort of engaging with musical platforms, are there things that like the next generation of Black musicians need to remember at the fore?
Oh, definitely. I mean, especially now with the advent of AI music, and I don't even know if those two words should go together.
AI sound.
Thank you, AI sound, only because you have to understand I am a child of Prince. And for me, Prince was about real music by real musicians. That was one of his slogans. And actually, in real time, there was this game called Guitar Hero, and they actually approached Prince about, doing a Prince edition, and he did not want to lend his name to that because he told them that he wanted kids to learn how to play real instruments and not pretend to play instruments. I think a lot of it has to do with, and I've already said this, but I feel very strongly about this, music as well as art being jettisoned from the schools. And so when that happened, what happened is that Black musicians turned to, the turntables, and then, they started sampling, which is great because it led people back to the original records. And then, sometimes, and when they did get instruments, they knew where that was coming from. But we're at a point where, history is being lost and in some cases trying to be erased. And I think it's really important that any musician understands that legacy of the history of Black music, starting from the blues, through jazz and all the way, through funk, all the way up to where we are today. Because you cannot create in a vacuum. I always tell my students, you can't have any output without any input. And so it's so important that they have that musical input. And
Absolutely. I legit had to stop while we were watching. I was like, AI can't do that.
Yes.
Right? We're not even in the arena in Syracuse on March 30th, 1985, but it still reaches as we watch it on the screen. And I was moved all over again, as I am every time I watch this film. And AI can't do that. What I worry about is that humans forget that we need that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you need to go somewhere and scream and sing your head off for 2 hours and be completely pulled out of your life and transformed and dazzled and amazed and like really brought. You need to have that experience that live music delivers. And so that's my concern for us. I will say that I'm fortunate that I get to work with young musicians every day who are working hard against all odds, where there are no jobs and society is not rewarding them for spending hours practicing and playing with friends to get really good at their instrument and their music. They have every reason not to pursue it, and they continue to do so because young people understand that they've been handed a messed up world, right? And they know that they are going to have to dig deep, not to fix, but to survive what they've been given. And I find a lot of my students, even as they use aspects of AI and technology, they're also skeptical of it. They know that something is missing, that they're not getting what we described in terms of Prince's upbringing. And I do find that a lot of them are reaching, and these, I feel for them, because this is also like the pandemic generation, right? Where families understandably were just like, here's a screen. School is a screen, play is a screen, talk to grandma through the screen, like it's just a screen. And so I think it'll be really interesting in the next 10 to 20 years to see how they recalibrate around their own emotional needs, because we strayed so far, even in the music, like in some genres becoming so minimalist, right? And like, I produced this, I wrote it and produced it and released it all from my bedroom. I can tell, because it don't sound like anybody else was involved, you know? So like this sort of maximalist, you know, sound that literally transports you. And it's so interesting watching, because it looks as if all of the moves are organic, but you know that they're not, because the guitar is placed where it's supposed to be. All the props are where they're supposed to be, right? But it's this maximalist. How much can we do? How much can we put into this sound? How much can we put into this show? And people understand the power of that to kind of take over them and like do something. Make them feel something. Make you feel. You can't watch that and not feel. And so much of our society, I'm sorry, I'm on all the rants today, are designed to not allow us to feel, like be like, I am sad. And I think bringing it back to Minneapolis, that's one of the things that's been so riveting about it, because people are like, we are angry.
Yeah.
We are mad. We are not going to let you do this. And right now, American society is very much about, like, don't do that. Just kind of keep your head down and get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much there, right? I think we are sort of losing liveness as a generation. And it's so interesting because I often feel like the same kind of feeling in my stomach when I'm at a protest, like in collective action, as I do when I'm in a concert or watching a concert, because there's something so invigorating about being at a live event and being around a lot of people and sort of experiencing the same thing together. So yeah, just hear that in terms of liveness. And we're about to sort of open it up to Q&A, because I'm sure folks have lots of questions for these two Prince geniuses. But before that, I did want to hear a little bit, D'Angela, about your symposiums and a bit about sort of your experience in general, like immersing yourself in the kind of like Prince.
Wait, I got to give her a shout out.
Yeah.
Because what you do is so important in soul work, because, yes, because those of us who were there, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's easy to assume that 10, 20, 25, 30 years from now, people will know and understand. And as a historian, I've seen over and over again, that's not the case. People are forgotten. People that, were the pinnacle of everything to you when you were of age. Younger folks, next generation, like, who? What? And so what you're giving us is a record of interpretation and letting us hear from people for whom Prince meant the most, so that when generations come back, there is something for them to listen to, text for them to read, voices for them to hear, to understand that, no, this wasn't just a pop artist. And you expanded way beyond Purple Rain, right? And so as an alumna of your symposia, I just wanted to give you that shout out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we started things off in 2017, and I owe a lot to a woman named Mabel Ivory. I was leaving a Revolution show, and I saw another friend. Her name is Deanna, and they were like, "We're going out to dinner. Why don't you join us?" I was like, "Okay." So it was going to be the 30th anniversary of Sign of the Times in 2017, and there was not any words from Warner Brothers Records, from the estate, and I was like, it's the 30th anniversary of Sign of the Times. So I said to Mabel, I want to do this little thing at NYU and invite some of my Prince friends, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, honey, why do you want to do that? It could be so much bigger. So with Mabel's urging, we put together an event where we had 4 incredible Prince scholars, Anil Dash, Miles Marshall Lewis, Zaire Lee, Elliot Powell, and it was great. So I was like, yes, I've celebrated Sign of the Times. And a couple of weeks later, there was a book signing for one of Prince's photographers, Steve Park. And people in the audience would come up to me and say, when are we doing it again? And I was like, oh, we're doing it again?
Yes.
I did not realize that. So then I realized, we need this community. and it's really important to keep Prince's name on the lips of the children. So we actually did our first Love Sexy Symposium in 2018. Fredara spoke at that, and we had Dr. Fink of the Revolution, we had Ingrid Chavez, and we had Kat Glover, who was a dancer in Prince's band. She's no longer with us. And it was phenomenal. So, to make a very long story short, we've had 11 Prince Symposia. The next one will be at NYU. It's going to be a 3-day event, April 17th through 19th. This year is the 40th anniversary of Parade, which is Prince's 8th album. And also, we are going to celebrate Prince's second narrative film, Under the Cherry Moon, which is my favorite Prince film. And the reason why I'm wearing black and white today is because it's black and white when it comes to 1986. And I'm kind of in 86 mode right now. So you're all welcome to join us. You can, find out about it at iwonderyou40years.substack.com. And we usually have about 40 different speakers, musicians, podcasters, academics. We're going to have filmmakers. I'm very excited that we're going to have Amir Lewis with us. I'm so excited about that because I've always wanted filmmakers to be involved. And it's like we're in a little bubble. But the reason why it's important that I do it at NYU is that I invite my students. And I was really privileged to be able to teach my first Prince course last spring at Clive Davis Recorded Institute of Music at NYU. And I was able to get them to come. And so it's just been a journey. And I cannot do it without all of you who come. It's all about the community, but it's also about hopefully exposing new people to Prince's music and legacy, because again, the whole point is to keep Prince's name on the lips of the children.
No, thank you. It's such vital memory work. So I'm just, forever grateful to everything that you're doing. Questions? If you have questions, you can go to the back where there's 2 mics.
You can start right there, sir.
Okay, excellent. Hi.
Turn the house lights up so we can see.
Yeah, can we turn the house lights up? Yeah.
Thank you all so much. My question has to do with Prince. I've never thought of him as a pop star. I really have always thought of him as being associated with the rock genre, especially with his musicianship and his use of guitar and this live sound. I'd love to hear your thoughts on why he's not more widely associated with rock over pop, besides the race thing, obviously.
I mean, it kind of ain't nothing besides race, in a way. I mean, you certainly can claim him as a rock musician, the style, but rock music is black music. That's literally black music. And so this idea, the battles that organizations like the Black Rock Coalition are fighting, shout out to VRC, Living Color, all these bands are fighting, is literally about reclaiming rock as like, this is black music too. This is black music first. And so, I want, you probably have a more sophisticated answer than that, but I'm just like that, and the way you said that, I think is how a lot of black folks, especially me, think. I want the answer to be something other than race. Yeah. Like, I want it to be both deeper and more complex than that, and oftentimes it isn't, and so, yeah.
First of all, I love you. And the reason why I love you is I have never heard anyone call Prince out of the gate a rock artist. So that is...
More of that.
Yeah, more of that. Now, there's obviously race, but also I think that because most people associate Prince as a pop star, I was telling Fredara earlier, and I've actually heard this from multiple people, that they didn't know that Prince actually was a musician, that he actually
That's crazy
played.
to me.
I have heard from...
I believe you.
Yeah, I have heard at 2 different occasions, someone would come up to me and say, I thought he was a movie musician, meaning like he was air guitaring and all of that in Purple Rain. And I was like, what? And so that's one thing, because I think what happens is a lot of people get sort of enamored with the way he looks, the way he dresses. Some of his, he's very playful, and they don't take him seriously as a musician. But what I loved is knowing that in the pandemic, you found Prince through the piano and the microphone release. It really melts my heart, because Prince was a masterful piano player, as well as guitarist, as well as bass player, as well as drummer. You can go on, vocalist. We don't talk about, people don't talk about how amazing Prince is as a vocalist, as a songwriter. I mean, as a band leader, as an entrepreneur, dancer. It was just, he was just, so I think because he could do so much, people don't really know how to talk about Prince sometimes, and also because the majority of the public have not been exposed to all of his work. They are only being exposed to very specific slices. And so if you're exposed to all of his work, I'm hoping that more people will come where you are and say that Prince is a rock artist, because he is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, I had this written down. So my question is essentially, in the age of the manosphere and rising conservatism, alpha males, et cetera, that we're seeing online right now, what do you think there is to be learned by the rising generation from how revolutionary Prince was when it came to subverting gendered expectations and dominant sexual scripts, especially for young Black boys, Black men in general?
Well, I'm going to actually start off, and I'm not going to answer your question directly, but adjacently. I think that watching the show today, I take it for granted. Sheila E. was the opener of the Purple Rain tour. That's really, really important. One, because Sheila E. is actually probably the first female drummer that was recognized, mainstream. Yes, thank you for that. So that's one thing. Second thing, Wendy Melvoin, who's the guitarist in the Revolution, was very pivotal to the Revolution, but for her to be the front and the lead, like the lead spots, it's incredible. Prince did that. Not many other, mainstream musicians had a female guitarist in their band. Eventually, Sheila E. would become the drummer for Prince's band. And so he, and also Wendy and Lisa is the keyboardist, would write with Prince. So he gave them a lot of love, in a very male-dominated sphere. That's one thing. One of the things that is sort of lost today is Prince was very revolutionary in terms of the way he presented himself. And it allowed people to be able to express themselves visually any way that they wanted to. And it just, I can't express how incredible that was. Growing up in the 80s, when it was very conservative as well, it was like the Reagan years. And so Prince just gives you permission to be all of who you are.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is an area where I'm actually encouraged by young people. Young people, a lot of them, they have so much better language and so much better, more awareness of who they are. Yet we absolutely have the manosphere, the bloggers, the podcasters. I wish you had to get a license in order to have a podcast at this point. All of that is very real. And also, young people are claiming their space in really beautiful and courageous ways that feel natural to them, where I'm like, I wish I had that. And so I think it's a both and kind of situation. And again, we have this lineage of Black artists really leading the way. Like, I was watching Prince on the piano, and I was like, Little Richard did that too. Like, so that is our inheritance. It's not an aberration. It's always in our DNA. It's a matter of how much we are nurturing that and supporting that in our community or not. And so, you know, and the thing about Prince, everybody loved Prince. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you get jokes and stuff, but like people did not feel any kind of way about buying the tickets and going down to the concert. You know what I'm saying? And so I think he is a model for us to remember, right? That in the midst of 80s Reaganomics and conservatism that you're mentioning, where we don't know it yet, we're about to go into the 90s with these very narrow views and hardline views of Black masculinity. Prince reminds us of a better way.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Bain, and first of all, I just want to say thank you for this programming in general. Like, I have been diving deeper into Prince myself, and I'd never really seen a full performance of his, and I think, like, that just adds so much layer to who he is, and myself, I'm a dancer, so I always think of him as a musician, but he's doing like 5 splits and then getting on the guitar and then singing, and it's just amazing to see. In the vein of keeping Prince on people's mind and in young people's minds, recently I watched the Spike Lee movie Girl 6 for the first time, and I just turned 30 this year, and it will be turning 30 this year as well. But that kind of seems like lost media of some sort over time. So I'm curious if there is any insight that you all have into where that is, and if that is something that is in the Schomburg's archives.
I have looked for Girl 6. It's not in the collection, sadly. Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't speak to why it's not there, but yeah, it's not there. I have looked for it.
Okay.
Can I say something, though? Since you're a dancer, I would highly recommend that you watch Sign of Times live.
Okay.
Yes.
Because my favorite dancer is Kat Glover, and she is incredible in Sign of Times live. That's one thing. And then the other thing I want you to watch is the Glam Slam 92 show that was released recently with the Diamonds and Pearls box set. And he has these dancers, we call them the game boys, or TDK, depending on who you talk to. And Prince is dancing his butt off with those guys. And so what I found very interesting is if you go back to Dirty Mind, Prince didn't really know how to dance. He was actually copying a lot of Mick Jagger moves, like pointing up and stuff like that. But seeing Prince actually excel as a dancer, his growth as a dancer is incredible. So I would highly recommend that you check those two out because I'm so proud that you've seen your first Prince performance.
Yes, like this is amazing. Thank you so much for the
I
recommendation.
just want to give a shout out to Spike Lee. I remember, I was telling them this earlier, I remember the day Prince died. I found out I was at the airport in Cleveland, Ohio, about to get on a flight back here. The first person I called was my daddy, my first Prince fan, to commiserate and in sheer disbelief. And I landed at LaGuardia, got on the M60 and came straight to the Apollo in Harlem, because they had already changed the marquee. They had the speakers outside, and everybody was out there dancing. And the first person I ran into was Greg Tate. Rest in peace, beloved Greg Tate. And I was like, I know everybody is hitting you up to write something, da-da-da-da. He was like, yeah, but there'll be time for that later. Right now, I got to be right here. And I was just like, that, your point about community, it brought it all back. Like, Black music is meant to bring us together, and that was just a beautiful moment to be in Harlem with the community, so everybody singing every Prince song, out loud for hours. And then once we left the Apollo, we went to Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn, and outside 40 Acres and a Mule, Spike had DJ Spinner, if you were there, come out and spin Prince records for like the next 2 hours. And it was like a massive block party. And, you know, for years, I feel like the pandemic slowed it down a little bit. Spike Lee would throw a Prince block party where he would come out front with Prince's guitar, and Spinner would play Prince records for like 4, 5, 6 hours. And going back to younger people, it was great because it was right in the heart of Bed-Stuy, Restoration, or over on Stuyvesant, a place like that, where, you know, it was a block party, so you didn't have to pay. So you just saw folk, all the generations just out there, the babies, the elders, everybody in between. So events like what you do, what Spike does with Prince, all of that is so important to make sure that folks like you get to have that encounter with Prince in community, right? Like you really get to experience, back to your point about liveness, like there's some element of liveness to it that really helps you get that emotional hook into why we still love and revere him so much.
Hi, how are you? My name is Anthony Grace. I'm a Purple disciple myself. I'm interested in the idea of Prince's stardom, not as like celebrity, but as ontology. You know, because from Dirty Mind through Purple Rain, there's a clear sense of crescendo. Like each album answers the next, and culminating to like Baby I'm a Star, which is what was like his thesis. It feels less like of a boast. And I'm like, could we read this period of Prince like locating himself as like a musical, spiritual source rather than like ascending to fame? And if so, how do we understand the post-Purple Rain when he wanted to undo all of that through Parade, through Love Sexy, through Sign of the Times? Like, how does he read it? Like, how do you like undo the star that you wanted to become?
Well, first of all, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Actually, before I answer your question, I think that Prince was truly sent on a divine mission to Earth.
True.
And I don't think that he was finished when he passed, because I really, truly wish he was here right now in Minneapolis, because I think it would be really interesting to see and hear what he would do about everything that's going on there. So we know, well, some of us know that after Purple Rain, Prince released Around the World in a Day. And Around the World in a Day was not Purple Rain 2.
Yeah.
And he did that on purpose because, again, he never wanted to be boxed in. He always wanted to be able to do whatever he wanted to do. But what is a through line is Prince's spirituality. So for me, you know, you definitely get that with Love Sexy. You actually get that with Graffiti Bridge, even though most people wouldn't admit to it. What's just around the corner is, you know, love for one another and spiritual, you know, ascendance. And then you go all the way to 2001's Rainbow Children. So for me, he never lost that thread of spirituality. And I love how you beautifully put it that he was on this spiritual mission. But I don't think it crescendoed with Purple Rain. I think it never crescendoed. I think Prince was always trying to bring us together. And when I say us, I mean humanity, you know, like as a whole. And so, I don't think he lost that spiritual thread.
I think it was the recurring theme for me with him is freedom. Like freedom for us, like from our everyday doldrum, but freedom for him too. And I think he fought the battle for freedom on multiple fronts. He fought it with labels.
Yeah.
He fought it by refusing to be boxed in by Purple Rain is the biggest thing I've done. So let
Even
me
his
not
audiences
make,
too.
Huh?
Even his audiences too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he comes out the gate with the point that you shared about don't make me black, meaning don't put me in a pigeonhole of a black music division inside of Warner. I think freedom emancipation literally is the thing. And I think freedom is always a spiritual quest. Like that's what it fundamentally is. And I agree with you. He wasn't done. You know, circumstances intervened, but it wasn't finished. But he left us so many blueprints and so many messages as to how to keep finding and pushing for freedom in all the ways that he did. And one of the artists that came to mind when we were talking was Miles Davis, like their relationship, because Miles Davis too, you know, he came out, they both have colors in them, kind of blue and purple rain. And Miles Davis refused to make another kind of blue. Like he was like, yes, I know that's the most successful thing I've done, but I'm not that guy. I'm an artist, and I think that's what artists do. Like they want to create yes, they want to be successful, however that means to them, but they also want to just make the thing that they feel compelled to make. And I think that's the most important thing. The creativity, absolutely.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Sorry, everybody. I think Prince is obviously a multifaceted genius, talent. I think one of the facets that is often overlooked or underestimated is his sense of humor. And I was wondering if you had maybe a story or an example of that showcases Prince's sense of humor that maybe we haven't heard.
I'm going to say it's because it's short, and then I'm going to let you have it. He's a trickster, right? If we think about African religions and cosmology, there's a trickster, a Legba kind of character that is comedic. He is a trickster. And so he does these things with winks and nods, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He does it in interviews. He does it on stage. He does it in the songs themselves. And so I think when we read him through that element of African religion and black folklore as well, like the Brer Rabbit characters, like all of those the sly characters, but brilliant, right? So the humor isn't a crutch, but it actually is a really effective device to get the point across. And he moves through it effortlessly. That's why he has so many memes. That's why, you know, like he is. His point isn't to reveal it all, right? And so, yeah, and so humor, I think, is one of the most. You could see it all throughout this performance, all kinds of winks and nods, and like he knows, you know what I mean? And so, humor to me is really a way of deep knowing, right? Because you have to know in order to be able to employ it and use it effectively. But I think of him as a quintessential trickster.
So it's really important to watch Under the Cherry Moon if you have not watched Under the Cherry Moon. Why Under the Cherry Moon is my favorite film is that's when I saw Prince as a person, as a human being. The character that he plays in Purple Rain is very stoic, very, no humor, pretty much. And
I'm sorry, can I take issue with that?
Sure.
There's the scene in Purple Rain where he's in his dressing room and he's kind of having issues with the time and the revolution, and he consoles himself by talking to that hand puppet. And I thought that was brilliantly funny, and I think the first time I was like, this dude is pretty funny, though.
Yes, he's hilarious. So that's exhibit number 1, Under the Cherry Moon. Exhibit number 2, if you go to YouTube and you type in Prince and sound checks, that is when Prince is really funny. If you listen to his sound checks, because I think that if Prince hadn't been a musician, he probably would have been a comedian.
Agreed.
And actually, a lot of comedians love Prince. You know, like Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock named his one of his Netflix or whatever special Tambourine after Prince's song Tambourine off of Around and Rollin' Today. So, you know, Prince was mad funny.
Yes, he was.
Mad funny. So much so that I asked Jesse Johnson, who was the guitarist of the time, who was funnier, Morris Day or Prince? And he literally said, I can't call it.
Wow.
That's what he said.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Angela and Fredara for this really insightful, wonderful, portal-opening conversation on all things Prince. And thank you to our audience for being here and activating Prince's spirit with us.
Because y'all are ride or dies, because it's cold.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
The next Black on Screen will be on February 4th. We'll be screening 2 works by William Greaves, and it'll be in the daytime at 1 p.m., a double feature. So we hope you can join us, and have a good night.